2 straight seasons, 2 perfect starts. The Indiana Hoosiers are 5-0 once again. But make no mistake, this journey looks very different. Last year, the Hoosiers shocked the nation with a Cinderella run all the way to the college football playoff. This year, Fernando Mendoza is rewriting the record books with 16 touchdowns and just 1 interception. Roman Hemby is pounding the rock, and Elijah Waffle House Sarratt is always open. Defensively, Indiana is giving up less than 10 points a game, and now the road ahead only gets tougher. The bye week is here, and the showdown with Oregon is looming. So the question is, how does this 5-0 compare to last year's? And can the Hoosiers take the next step from contender to champion? Get ready, Hoosier Nation. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
Here's the snap. Here's the throw. Catches Murray. Down the middle of the field goes Sarratt. Touchdown! And Indiana scores a 49-yard pass play and a break by Elijah Sarratt that broke a tackle, and he turns it into the end zone.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Tailgate. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. It's a pleasure to be with you here tonight. And happy bye week, I guess you could say, as Indiana will be off this weekend. And we're going to talk a little bit about what does that entail in terms of a bye week for Indiana. But at the same time, we're going to take a look to see where Indiana was at this point in time a year ago and compare that to where they're at a year later, because is there any similarities in the statistical data that shows anything? We'll take a peek at that, look at that, and see what we can find, and maybe get into some of the video aspect of things about maybe some things offensively that Indiana needs to retool or reevaluate. And usually what happens during these bye weeks, you're going to spend a big time and a big amount of it self-scouting yourself, seeing what tendencies you have put out there on tape for now the 5th straight week, and making sure that you are trying to break some tendencies that have appeared that maybe you weren't aware of. Now, most teams do a pretty good job of updating that week after week. But when you're in this situation here and you're getting ready to play arguably the best team in the conference as well as the nation to that degree, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the best opportunity at both ends of the equation. But here's kind of the big question when you think about it: how do these 2 perfect starts compare? And Indiana being 5-0 for the 2nd straight year, first time in school history that they have not only been 5-0 to start a year, but also to be ranked in the top 10. How does it compare to a year ago? How did that, hot streak run look like? Last year we were talking about get to Nebraska, and then that's when everything would kick off, and then we would see where we were at. And that was week 6 on the docket. Same bye week as well. And, they had that docket of Nebraska, Washington in that mix, where now Indiana is going to have Oregon looming large next week. But thus far, they've completed 2/3 of the gauntlet, as I like to call it. And we said prior to the season starting, Indiana needed to come out of this 2-week window 2-0, so that they went into Oregon on house money per se, and had every opportunity then to have the mindset of we can go out there and beat one of these big time teams in our in the Big Ten Conference. And quite honestly, Indiana needs to do that. Indiana needs to beat the likes of an Oregon or a Penn State, as they are the two major players in the Big Ten and brands. And Indiana needs to beat both of them or one of them to show their eliteness, because in some respects it's going to be what they're judged on this year by is going to be how well they do in those two ball games, and to a certain degree. So it's going to be imperative in some point in time that Indiana is going to have to step up and beat one of these really good teams. And last year, the two teams they lost to were eventually two teams in the national championship game. But we also understood that Indiana showed some cracks in the foundation after that Michigan game, and kind of caught up with them against Ohio State. And the same thing kind of caught up against them against Notre Dame. But we'll take a look at that right now. But we'll get that all taken care of. We'll also get to the video room, like I said. And just remember, if you are, we are affiliated with BetMGM, this with the Hoosier Tailgate and the Hoosier.com, as well as others. But the Tailgate has an affiliate agreement with Fanatics stores that has all the different sportswear that you can get, game day wear, swag, if you want to call it. And Indiana has a sports-specific store, and they were kind enough to reach out and said, hey, do you want to work with us and provide a storefront for Indiana fans that your audience could take advantage of some of the deals that we have for those dedicated stores. So if you can get over there, Fanatics, and look that up off of my bio page, greatly appreciate that, as well as other ones. And if we do get that type of money, we always roll it back into the equation here at the deal. The other thing tonight, after we get off those affiliate aspect of things, is if you got any questions that pertains to Indiana, where they're sitting right now, what is, the forecast, or what does the opposition look like heading forward, by all means, we want this to be a open discussionary aspect of a show. And quite frankly, we've had that the last couple times. So appreciate that. I know there's a lot of other things going on tonight. You got Major League Baseball, you got the Cubbies, who are up 3-0 in the top of the eighth, by the way. And, some other ball games heading out tonight. So appreciate you guys being here, and especially on a game week. The Hoosiers are not playing Saturday, but it's on the cusp of being able to go play the number 2 ranked team in the country here in another week in that regard. So it's going to be a interesting dynamic here as we jump into some of the things tonight. Let's see here. That's not what I wanted to. There we go. The Big Ten today, I announced, and some of you may be aware of this because even Jim Coyle brought it to the attention to everyone. The Big Ten is discussing a $2 billion private capital deal with some entities out there. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic when you think about all that. And I'm trying to see where my thing is here, but I'm not finding it right off the bat. But they've got this opportunity that is finding a way essentially to influx money into the Big Ten institutions without compromising their grasp of control of the Big Ten. So it's a way that Tony Petitti's come up with some idea that's going to allow this to occur. And I guess this is kind of what I say is this is up Tony Petitti's his alley based upon his Major League Baseball experience and, other professional sports experience, and finding ways to infuse money into the scenario where the Big Ten and the schools in the Big Ten all can get some money on their hands in that regard. Let's see here. Remind me of that too, Rudy, whether we get to it tonight, but also even next week when we talk Oregon on that. But yeah, they did that against Iowa. But it was kind of the same thing they did against Ohio State, where the right guard would look back, and as soon as he got the leg lift from the quarterback, he would shoot his hand forward and they would snap the ball. That's not a great way to handle that, because it lets defenses tee off on you, because they learn your snap count and they know that you're not going on a regular count, you're going silent count. And I'm not a big fan of tipping the defense off on when the ball is going to be snapped. So that's kind of what they did against Iowa, which I imagine is what they're going to carry on to do against Oregon. We'll see. Maybe they'll have something different at that time. But this deal that's potentially on the table, when you think about it, it's a way to help the member schools keep afloat a robust athletic program and giving people the opportunity to continue to participate in the collegiate athletic aspect of things, especially those non-revenue in that regard. So we'll see what all happens there, but it's a good thing for the NCAA. I mean, if it happens, man, all power to them, because $2 billion is nothing to sneeze about in that regard. Everybody's totally aware that Tino Cincinnati is now out at UCLA. They had a parting of the ways this week after things went south and they fired the head coach. And early this week, they even decided to part ways with Tino. Now, they said it was mutually agreed upon, so you got to take it at its word. And sorry for Tino. I mean, it's tough. That's the business, man. You can go from the penthouse to the outhouse real quick in the business. And, he went from a red hot program that was on its way to bigger, brighter things. And he was a sought after commodity. UCLA came in and offered him some big time money, and I think a 3-year deal on top of it. So they're going to still have to pay him out, and he'll have to do what they call mitigate their liability, which means he's got to actively look for a job, so that they don't have to fulfill they don't have to have the brunt of that contract. So wherever he goes, they'll pay the difference of what he's making there. But it's kind of like I said, sometimes, even though that was a promotion, you got to be OC, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. There's more to the circumstances there. I know there were some family ties to the head man out there at UCLA. But it's just one of those things, is that I think he learned a invaluable lesson, because now he's unemployed. He's got a couple of years maybe to figure his way back or find his way back into a situation where he's in a quality control position, because all the schools have that now. And they're letting those guys, I think, even coach on the field these days. But would I be surprised if he found his way back to Indiana? Nope. Wouldn't be a bit surprised at that. In a quality control matter. But at the same time, it may not be the best thing to do, having that you've got the guy that replaced him there. And I wouldn't want to, ruffle any feathers in that regard. But he'll find his way back. Good coach, good solid base, and he'll be okay. And like I said, he's going to get paid a couple $1 million for the next couple of years. And then I'm sure that they've probably already headed up and left L.A. because the cost of living out there is not great, in that regard. Yeah. As it pertains to the $1 billion, it would take a lot of stress off those and other programs if they can find ways to infuse dollars into the system that goes above and beyond the rev share in that regard. Can't imagine leaving Bloomington for LA. Well, you wouldn't think that way, but when you look at it from the perspective of a team that's on as red hot as Indiana was versus a team at UCLA that was in disarray and probably made the wrong hire at the head table out there, you got to be able to see that and say, wait a minute, there's some things going on here that don't add up. And he knew he was under pressure out there that if they didn't win, he's probably out. So it is what it is, man. That's the college football business. And when you're at the D1 level, it is a business. Even before we went through all this rush here, when I was coaching back at D1 back in the 90s to the early 2000s, it was a business. It was all about W's in that regard. So anyway, that was kind of that pickup as it pertains to Tino, and we'll wish him the best. And I'm sure, like I said, will come up big at wherever he's at. Now we're going to try to find, I think this is my power rankings. That's not my power rankings. That's something else. Let me see where I can find them. It's never easy for me in technology, as you guys know. It's like, where is my this and where is that? Let's see here. I know I got it around here something. That's not it either. Dummy. Oh, here we go. Found them. There we go. Power rankings in week 6 of the Big Ten. Indiana moved up to the number 3 slot. Penn State, with their loss, moved down. Ohio State and Oregon right there at 2. 1 and 2 overall. Illinois found its way back up as they beat USC. They kind of swapped positions with USC. And then you kind of have the rest there that's remaining in the Big Ten that right now I don't see any Big Ten getting any more than 4 at the most into the CFP this year. I just think that's going to be the cutoff, and I think it's going to be hard in some respects unless, you're a major brand in the Big Ten, teams with 2 losses getting in over a SEC team. So we shall see, I guess is what we say. But right now, Indiana can't complain where they're at in the power rankings and how those in the conference feel about them as a whole. I think there's a lot more respect for Indiana this year on a lot of fronts, including the coaches within the Big Ten that are aware of the capabilities of Indiana and meeting the challenge, because that's all they've done. They said at the beginning of the year, well, we'll see what you do against Illinois. And they took Illinois behind the outhouse and pounded them 63-10. Okay, well, we'll see how you do at Iowa. And all they did was go out to Iowa and found a way to win, and 20-15. And there's still people saying, well, we're going to wait and see how you do against. I mean, they keep moving the goalpost. So there's going to be some out there that are never going to accept that Indiana is a part of the discussion when you talk about the upper echelon of college football. And it's just going to have to be something that Indiana is going to have to deal with. And the way they deal with it is beating a Penn State or beating an Oregon. And even though those 2 teams are out on the, those are away games for Indiana this year, you're going to have to find a way to beat one of those teams at some point in time to solidify yourself in the club that's up there in the penthouse level of the Big Ten. And even though some of them have fallen a little bit, a la Michigan, they're still viewed as an elite or elitist in that group of people in the Big Ten that, gets free pass into the penthouse. So that's what it takes. But right now, when you look at it, you can understand that Indiana, for the biggest part of the year, has been within the top 5 of the power rankings in the Big Ten as we go along, as we head along this week. Kind of the schedule this week is an interesting dynamic as well. Let me see this here. Yep, let's go. Move that up a little bit. You got Wisconsin at Michigan, which I think is going to be a pretty good ball game this week at Ann Arbor. Michigan's a 17.5-point favorite, as this is a screenshot from ESPN's website for all disclosure purposes. But that ball game for Wisconsin is I think is an important game for Luke Fickell, to be honest with you. You've got teams already making changes in the country, out in their coaching search already. Wisconsin has not been a program that has had much success since Luke Fickell took over. And this game at Michigan, it would go a long ways for him to go in there and come out with a win. And their defense, quite honestly, is playing pretty darn good. And they're ranked in some of the different statistical categories in the Big Ten as a defense, and as well as nationally. So if they can find an offense with what they've got left, and losing Billy Edwards for the time that they have has really hampered them, this is a game to keep an eye on Saturday, because if they can force Michigan into a one-dimensional avenue and force the true freshman to have to win a ball game, well, there's things there that bode well for Wisconsin. Illinois is at Purdue in another intriguing Big Ten matchup. Illinois 9.5-point favorite right now, 55.5 over as the over-under. Purdue, for the most part, I think, has got off to a decent start with the new staff. The Brown kid has done quite well. The quarterback, he's had some success. And that is their never count a Purdue team out when they've got a coach at the helm that knows what the hell he's doing. And they've got a guy at the helm that knows the hell what he's doing. And Illinois coming off a huge win against USC after Indiana's drumming. And you got to give credit to Coach Bielema and his staff for regrouping after the shell shock that they went through in Bloomington, not expecting that type of ball game. And now all of a sudden they got to go back home to play USC, by the way, was a top 25 team. And so Illinois, found a way to regroup and win a ball game. And now they head to Purdue to take on the Boilermakers. And, that matchup is going to be an interesting one as well. We'll see if Illinois can hold serve. They're still shaky in their secondary, and the Boilers' passing game has been quite good. So another game to take a peek at this weekend. Penn State at UCLA, that could get ugly. And 24.5 is the spread. Washington at Maryland, here's going to be a dynamic one. You got two quarterbacks that one's, I believe, a redshirt freshman and the other is a true freshman at Maryland. Maryland is a team, too, that has been on the roll of late, and they are doing quite well for Coach Loxley after a very challenging 24 season. Washington lost a tough game to Ohio State, pretty close game. They had some chances and had problems getting the ball in the end zone inside the red zone, and they had to settle for 3 points, and that's not going to beat Ohio State. But they played a pretty darn good ball game there at Washington. So that's another game in this Big Ten weekend that's going to be a dynamite one to see. Northwestern heads out of conference with UCLA Monroe. Another interesting game is Michigan State at Nebraska. both teams, you got Dylan Raiola and you got the Aiden Childs kid at Michigan, two young quarterbacks that have gotten better, Raiola especially, and Aiden Childs, he continues to get better, and he's an impressive kid. Right now, Nebraska 11.5-point favorite. So that one as well. And then, of course, Minnesota travels to Ohio State, and that will be on the Peacock or NBC, as that's the big game Saturday night. On Saturday night there, in the Michigan-Wisconsin game is the big noon kickoff game. So let me see here. I think I had a question there. Oh, yeah, there's some lopsidedness there with Wisconsin, that their run game is their run defense is quite good, and their pass defense in some respects is not living up to the billing. I have seen that before, and they get that's where the defense mentality, you lose it. You find ways to force a team to become one-dimensional because you can stop them from running the ball, and then all of a sudden they're throwing it on you because you can't defend the pass. So it's kind of and a bad thing to have when you're really good against the run and not great against the pass. And that's what I was saying against the Michigan game. That game is an interesting dynamic because of Michigan's inability to really turn the young pup loose. And they may have to do that Saturday, especially with Wisconsin's run defense. So that's what grabbed my attention on that one for sure. And, that's the thing about this, is that you just don't know what could all happen in those ball games when you've got the opportunity of shutting down a top team like Michigan's running game, and you force them into throwing the ball, which is not something they're overly comfortable with at this time. So it'll be an interesting dynamic with that ball game. Yeah, Penn State is not going to be happy going out to the West Coast, especially after getting beat at home against Oregon. And they get to go take their frustrations out against UCLA. And Brian, I appreciate you coming back in tonight. Yep, trap game for Illinois, potentially. That one is a definite possibility of being a trap game as well. And Minnesota's done some things against Ohio State, even when it's been at Ohio State. It's kind of one of those games for Minnesota that they get locked up in. And it's one of those things that Ohio State just has, over the years, has found a way to keep themselves in striking distance of a game like against Ohio State and, find a way to sneak up on them. So there's going to be a ton of games this weekend throughout the country that are going to have an intriguing say within each conference in their races out there as they head into this middle part of the season, as both the conferences now are shifting into that alignment phase of who's the king and queen and so forth and so on in each conference. So, the Big Ten is going to have a lot shake out this weekend. SEC is going to be the same way. You got Alabama and Vanderbilt playing on Saturday, a team that Alabama got beat by last year. Pavia kid is lighting it up again, and that's going to be an interesting ball game. Florida State, Florida. There's another ball game that's going to have some big meaning to it, and I would say it's a must-win for Billy Napier at Florida, especially with everything. So, it's going to be a dynamite weekend in college football for all those involved. So, while the Hoosiers are not playing this weekend, you get a chance to really enjoy Saturday watching a number of games in every conference that is going to have a significant meaning, not only to the conference race, but also to the college football race when you look at it from that perspective. So it'll be a good one to be around this weekend to see what all transpires with these games. So, hey, we're going to step aside real quick, learn a little bit about Academy Sports and their affiliation as well as BetMGM. So don't go away. When we come back, we'll get rock and rolling on the Hoosiers and talk about their system of operation here through the first 5 weeks of the season right here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets. You ready for game day like Academy Sports and outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPNBY or text HOPNY 467369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT STEP, Arizona, 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa, 1-800-981-0023, Puerto Rico.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com, and update there by the Cubbies. That's pretty good, Brian. Yeah. They just put him on, so then I got runners at first and second with one out, and they just went to the bullpen. So keep you abreast there of the Cubbies and their chance to advance. And, yeah, the freshman quarterback at Minnesota did look really good on Saturday. And so that's why I said that game at Ohio State could have, like I said, Minnesota always finds a way to stay in those type of ball games and get her done, so to speak. So it's been a interesting dynamic in that regard for Minnesota when it comes to that. And then of course PJ Fleck, and he's the row the boat guy, but PJ, you got to give him credit as well. He's one of those guys that has done everything quite well there at Minnesota, which is not an easy place to win at, and he's been able to do that. So good luck to him and all that. So let's take a look at these Indiana Hoosiers now. Last year Indiana, from a schedule standpoint, it wasn't a very overly strong schedule per se. Do think Indiana's schedule this year is a little better just because of who they're facing earlier as opposed to late last year. They had Michigan, Ohio State towards the end of their schedule. This year they got, Wisconsin, they had Iowa, they had Illinois. So they've had a pretty good gauntlet of games here, and all the guys have done is win. But last year at the same time, they were both 5-5 heading into this break. And it's interesting to break this down and look at it as I kind of was putting pencil and paper, trying to add some things up here. So I'll preface this within the margins per se with everything. But through the first 5 games last year, Indiana was averaging about 49 points a game, only allowing 513 yards of total offense, 210 rush, 302 pass, which is really good. Third down conversion rate, they were about 58%. And then defensively, they had held teams on third down to 29%. And at this time, through 5 weeks of the year, they were at a +3 on turnover margin. Now you flip the page to going back to, this year with Indiana's schedule and things, which was probably a little bit heavier than last year's first 5 weeks. They were right there at 48 points a game. Defense is much better at 9.6, 538 yards per game. And look at that. This is what's crazy. I know Indiana went through a stretch there that they were rushing for an average of 300 yards per game. But right now, after 5 weeks of playing, they have 268 yards rushing and 270 yards passing. That's crazy in terms of how equal that is in their offense right now. The rush game has gone down some just because of, they didn't have that great a game this past week in the rushing department, but good enough. Third down efficiency, 58%. Defense, 23.8%. So they've even improved on those 2 areas. And red zone right there, almost at 90%, almost the same as it was a year ago. Turnover margin +3 and +6. So it's kind of interesting when you look at that, Indiana, in both ways of it. And congratulations for the Cubby fans out there. They are advancing and moving on as they defeat the Pods 3-1 tonight. But in this instance, Indiana's offense and defense is a little bit better than they were a year ago, but probably facing better teams. And that is an interesting dynamic through the first 5 weeks. And that was the key component of that. Yep, Cubbies win. Big win for the Cubbies. Moving on. So that was an interesting looking at it from, perspective there. Then, defense. Look, I mean, it has been dynamite this year again. 9 points a game. Nothing there that, puts you in a state of panic. Indiana's front 7 is as tough as they got. I think their D-line has been great to this point. Tucker and Landino have played well. You've had Daly come in and play well as others, Wheeler and other guys have come in and played well. And, hey, Hardy and Isaiah Jones both have been terrific at the backer position here through the first 5 weeks of the season. Now, when you look over to the quarterback comparisons, let's compare Curtis Rourke and Fernando Mendoza after 5 games. Just about the same number of attempts, only 7 more. Or you can see Fernando's got a better percentage, pass percentage, but different yardage, 1208 to 1372. So I would say that maybe is a little bit more of the back shoulder throw compartment that Indiana hasn't had this year. Touchdowns pretty identical. INTs identical. Now Curtis was averaging 274 a game, as Mendoza is right at 242 a game. And he's where his difference between Curtis is at 102 yards rushing and 2 TDs. as did Curtis did, but we know those reasons because of Curtis's knee and stuff. But overall productivity, you got to give it a little bit of a slight edge to Fernando based upon where they're at overall percentages and yards per game. Running back, this was another interesting one. You know, Justice Ellison had 360 yards at this point, 4 TDs. Roman Hemby has 351, but he has no TDs. Keelan Black, 34 yards total rushing, 2 TDs. And Martin, the young pup's come in. He's at 222 yards and 4 TDs. He's leading the team in touchdowns. Now, I know that's a little skewed because of the game against Illinois and Indiana State, but for that matter. But for a team that we think is running the ball better overall, the statistical breakdown between the 3 backs last year and this year, the top ones are about equal. Keelan Black has really made a jump up. He's gotten more carries, but he's ahead of where Tyson Lawton was. And it's, again, edge to this team's 25 rushing attack versus last year based upon, like I said, we got a pretty darn good running game with that. Wide receiver crew, again, we're comparing the 3 that played last year and the same. Sarratt is comparable to where he was. Omar Cooper's the one that's jumped out, 432 yards, 6 touchdowns compared to where he was a year ago. And then E.J. Williams has kind of taken the place of Miles Price, and you see where he's at in that respect in terms of our top receivers. Overall speaking, I think Elijah's still the top one in terms of targets. Omar's had a lot more bigger plays overall when you look at it from that perspective. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, right. And again, Curtis was, and what Indiana had a year ago was probably a little bit more pass happy with Curtis because of his knee was not going to be a part of the offense, and also, their offensive line was maybe not as great in terms of blowing people off the football, but Indiana, as far as a unit, is about right where they were a year ago with a tad better in some categories overall. So it's a overall, they had a better explosive passing attack, where this year Indiana's got a stronger run game and some more efficiency at the quarterback play, better defense. And again, I think you got to be pleased where Indiana is at overall and this dynamic of looking at this year when you look at it from 5 games. And that's, one of those things where you got to look at. Well, yeah, they're right. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was saying is that last year they didn't have as probably good of rushing attack, although they did pretty good, but consider who it was against. And Curtis could push the ball down the field a little bit better because of the back shoulder throw that he threw so effectively. And so it's a difference between what Indiana did last year. But overall, when you look at it, they're almost, it's better this year in marginal ways on the efficiency side, more so than anything. But when you look at yardage, it's almost identical, which kind of was surprising. And you probably wouldn't have thought that. And that's why it's good to go through things analytically and look where you're at. And, why are we doing this and why aren't we doing that? And we should be better here. And, the game against Iowa, was a little frustrating of a day because Indiana it was the first game where they had not really broken out with a lot of, big plays, but I've watched that game 3 times, and it's not as bad as you think it is in terms of the struggles they had that day. They lacked consistency, but that was partly due to Iowa's defense more so than anything. And we'll throw that game back on here in a second. But again, I'm pretty pleased where Indiana's at overall when you look at it from the black and white of it. I don't see anything that like you're going to panic over heading into this next big game. They come out of the 2 out of the 3 of the gauntlet with victories, which was what they needed to do. They get a week off to heal some bumps and bruises, work on themselves as well as working on Oregon, and they will be able to go out to Oregon playing with some house money per se, because they got these 2 W's over the last 2 weeks. So that in itself is also very good thing right there. Yep, that's another thing that plays into the equation per se. I didn't look at quarters played. The one thing I did look at a little bit was, I think they got to get Holden States involved a little bit more in the offense and more repetitions. I know that his blocking is maybe not as strong as Nowalski's, but the kid's a big body, and I think they could use him in a lot of ways as a tight end. In some cases, they're missing because of that. Now, it's not because he's played, but he's not played, I don't think, as many snaps as Riley has. And I don't understand that. And I don't know if something they look at and say, hey, we got to get him in more. We're not using him enough in that situation. And I think that's what they'll be talking about the next couple of days with everything. So, that was one of the things that I, kind of came away with there, looking at some of that. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else on my table here. Okay, let's I'll wait here and get my video system up and running as I'm moving things around here. And like we said, the Cubbies advance on, and that's good for the Cubbies. And a big one now out in New York. Yankees trying to advance as well against the Sox. So it's getting crazy right now in that regard when you think about it. Getting some history in there overall. So this is going to be an interesting aspect of things. Now, I was able to get through my channels the end zone view of the Indiana-Iowa game. So we're going to throw some of this up here because you'll get a better look from it than we had. So it's a little bit better of a coach's video room per se aspect of things. And, we get that all 22 look. Yep, that's right. The Tigres how about that? They had a heck of a year. From this game on Saturday. And like I said, I've watched this game. And again, the reason why I picked this game is this game, in a lot of ways, kind of mimicked some of the Michigan game of last year, where Indiana, they had that decent first half, but then Michigan made some changes and really kind of exposed some things for Indiana. And Iowa is similar to that style of things. Now, this is after the huge turnover that Farrell got, and you can see right now they're in, their base 3x1. Well, I call this a bunch set with single receiver. You got 2 high, a corner and 2 high safeties. So you got like what I call 4 coverage to the field and 2 coverage into the boundary. And they're going to throw the bubble out here because Fernando right now is going to read this guy in an RPO deal. So he sees that guy, he sees him cheat in, and throws it and gets it out fast. And right there, they almost had a big play. I wish, we need him to square up more. That's Riley on the outside. That kid, he plays his ass off and he blocks, man. I know that Holden Stays needs to get in there, but you got to love that Riley because he blocks his ass off. Inside, those guys are playing their inside run playing because they don't know, and there we go. But you can see this block by Nowalski does a great job, as does EJ. EJ, I think, though, has got to be careful because he's going to get called for holding because he's getting too much separation on his block. When you're teaching guys to block on the perimeter, and Riley's doing it pretty good here, you got to keep your hands on the inside of the defender because if it's anywhere outside up around the shoulder area and you grab jersey, you're going to get called. But if your hands are inside under the, kind of under the pits of the opposing player, you can grab jersey all day and they're not going to call it. And that's kind of how you teach how to hold the correct way, if you understand what I'm saying. But these guys do a great job on this play on the outside. And, of course, Cooper got what he could. And, Indiana's threatening again. And it was an awesome thing to see to get out with that. Because I was shocked right now. They got their offense turns it over, and Indiana picks it off, and we're down in the zone quickly. Now you get in it. Iowa's playing a 4-man front. They got a guy, one of their backers up on the line of scrimmage. So this is kind of what you call like a 5-1 look. Still 2 high safeties, but they're playing like a 2-man on the outside. And this is a great job. This is a great job because on this route, the best route to have on this is this route here, is to throw that corner route versus this coverage because this guy has so far to go. What you have to be careful of on this route is the corner jumping up underneath that route, but Sarratt does a good job of occupying, and you can see right there, there's nobody going to get it. I like to see Omar not come out as shallow, but he did a great job, and it was another great throw there by Mendoza. And all of a sudden, you're like, wow, it's 7-zip. That was easy. That was easy. Now you're going to see Indiana. This is a called protection, and they're going to slide it. You see him turning back there. This is keeping 7 blockers in. So no matter what they're bringing, Indiana's got a way to protect it. And you're basically seeing it where they're protecting their gaps to their left, and the back is coming for anything off the edge. And that's a good max protection. And that is what they need to do some more of, especially these teams that like to challenge you. And then the guys on the outside got to go win. Like here, that was key. Key throw, key everything there. Let's see. Darn it. Let me get going here. Okay, this is that silent count, and you can, if you watch here, the right guard is looking back at Fernando there. Whoops, didn't mean to do it that way, but anyway. And as soon as he lifts his leg up, that's telling him I'm ready, and this guy's going to shoot his left hand forward. And I don't like that because it tells the defense that the ball's coming up and you can, get teed off on. But inside zone here, this is a great run play that they have run pretty decently this year. Hemby runs it really well. It's blocked well. Omar's got to get in there and dig it out more because I don't like that. I don't like even what he did there because he engages the guy first and looks like he's got a pretty good job of getting him, and then he gives up. That ain't good. So he would have got a negative in that from me because that wasn't good effort. But we get to see him block it here. Yep. You can see him all blocking that zone. Hemby does a great job pressing it front side. Press it, rip it in the A-gap. Now, Evans has got to hang on to his block longer because if he did, he would have had a lot more yardage there in that particular play. Let's see, get some going here. Okay. Now, this is going to tip Fernando off. The guy that's going to tip him off in the is this guy right here, and his level being shallower than this guy. So he knows that they got to be going to some type of 11, and they're going to bring this guy off the edge. So they got to be communicating that, and they're bailing to kind of like a 3 deep coverage, and he gets caught hanging with the football. And this is one you like to get it out to him quicker, but once there, he's got to run it and get what you can. So you chalk your hat up to them on that one. But again, that's good protection by Indiana. I was trying to get to another key component here, kind of jumping ahead in this game. Let's see where we're at here. Okay, that's right before halftime. What is this? Oh, that's at the end of the game. Jesus. The one thing I think Indiana's going to have to work on quite a bit is, if they're going to go for it, I'm trying to find the 4th and 1s. Now this is a good drive by Indiana. It starts off with the inside zone RPO concept here to the boundary. He could have thrown it to the boundary there if he wanted to, but they do get a good push against Iowa. And, they keep, when you're backed up like this, you just got to be careful. Here's an RPO where he pulls it and throws the hitch route out to Elijah. Good route, good. This is what Fernando does really good. This guy's got the quick deliver. Look at that. That ball goes boom. He gets it in and out of his hands quick. All right, let's see here. There was a play. I want. Yeah, this was first down. Hemby had a hell of a game running. You can just, he's another guy that I think they need to work him more with the football and get him in a position where he's doing it more carries a game. Just their inside zone comes up. He presses it forward. He misses the cut here. I think if he would have been a little bit more patient, you can see this, right? Whoop. Hit your head on the goalpost. But he runs very hard, and you cannot crucify him for that. Here's a situation, 3rd down, I think, or 2nd down. They're going to blitz. This is what they did earlier in the game. Dead giveaway where they're at. They got a tight end attached. And you can't run it into that. You're trying to run it with a guy unblocked, and He got caught with one. And I'll show you back here. They're trying to run it to the left, and they got too many bodies in there. And because the guy off there is going to, boom. This is that play that Old Dominion ran, that he read this backside guy coming off the edge. Now, if Indiana had that, look at that play. He would have been out the gate for a touchdown like that kid from Old Dominion. All right, this is the one play. This is 4th and 1, and I'm going to stop it here because the scenario is this. It's 4th and 1, and they're going to go for it. Parker's going to say, look, if you're going to try to run it, I'm going to have 9 guys up here because that's what they got. They got 9 guys. You are not going to run it against that look. I don't care how good you are. The only thing you can run, I can show you from the end zone, but that's not Indiana. We'll go over it in a second. But you got to throw it one-on-one with 2-man combination routes of some sort because this is not going to fly. And the second thing is you can't run inside zone with that many guys up there because there's a guy that's going to be unblocked in the gap. So this play to me is on coaches because either they should have called timeout here or this is one where I thought they should have taken the points, that being that they're on the road. But you can see, I mean, holy crap. Now you're going to say, well, look backside here. They only got 1, 2, 3 guys. Well, okay. But the problem is you got guys shooting the gap here this way. So it's not a very good deal. And you got nobody in center field. So it's a true 9-man cover 0 mindset from the defense. Now, the play that I would run here is that play I drew last week. You block it this way, kind of blocking things back. You option him, and you bring this guy around and you option him, and you may have something, but that Indiana's not, I don't think that's then their repertoire as an offense. So this, though, I think they've got to be smarter on their 4th downs, and they get these funky looks. They either got to give Fernando a lot of flexibility to change the play at the line of scrimmage, or they're going to put themselves in bad situations where this end up being I think it was a 10-point turnaround because Iowa goes down and scores. Fortunately, Indiana comes back and gets a field goal before half. But this was a huge turnaround in this ball game, and that to me is bad. That's on the coaches because they can't get mad at these guys because there's 9 guys in there and they only got 7 guys to block. I mean, it's not even fair in that regard. Let's see here. Yeah, I think what he was answering is that they didn't want to have audibles and the crowd noise. Okay, well then you better start. Then this is where they should have taken a timeout and rethought their strategy. Take the points or give him 2 plays. You got this or this. You make the call at the line of scrimmage because you can't put your handcuffs on your ball club in a game like this and think that we're just going to run it and find out what happens. And they found out what happens. They got, knocked out of them twice because of the box was too heavy. It was too heavy. So they got to have an answer. And that's what I would say is the biggest concern I would have is Indiana's 4th down mindset and when they're going to go for it. And if they're going to go for it, they got to have an answer for this type of stuff because they're going to face it against another team until they get it answered. So the way they would do it is max protected here and throw 2-man routes on the outside because that's what the defense is giving you. And you say, well, it's only a yard. We could get a yard. Well, you can't get a yard when there's 9 guys in the box. unless you're going to have a +1 on the scenario with that being the quarterback running it. So it's that in that regard. So this week for Indiana, two things I think is important for them to grasp and get out of it. Number one, solidify their depth. Make sure they got the answers for if somebody gets hurt. Offensively, they've got to come out with it as well as making sure that they're targeting their guys like Sarratt and Williams and Omar Cooper. And like I said, the Stays kid. And do we do some more things with the running backs out of the backfield and checking down to them and things of that nature, and getting things from that perspective rolling. The one thing I also think too, and the question I have is their offense too simplistic? Because they don't have those block down, kick out mentality. They've ran them. They've ran some counters. They've ran some powers, but not to the extent to get really good at it from that stand. Well, again, they may have that physicality and mindset, and that's fine. I mean, they may be correct. They may have enough to do that. But I think that favors Indiana if they're going to play a basic defense in those situations and just let Indiana decide whether they are PO'd or not, because that's the differential in those type of things. But we'll see when it comes to that. But to me, Indiana, those are the things that they have to address. And I don't think it's a wholesale thing. It's kind of the little pieces of an offense to make yourself better. Because like I said, when you look at the statistics of where they are now compared to where they were last year with the same record, their offense was the same to a degree in the run, in the categories, yardage-wise. Last year, the difference was they were trying to prove themselves as a legitimate program that could play with anybody when everybody told them you played no one. And so that was their deal. They were trying to make a statement, which I think they did. This year's team is trying to put themselves in a position that's been settled. We want to be a team that's a contender in the Big Ten. We want to be a team that's at that upper echelon penthouse level, and not be somebody that, has to make a reservation 6 months in advance. But they got to be the team that is going to be consistent and be at that top tier in the Big Ten. And that's what this year's more about than last year. Last year, they had to prove it. This year, they're kind of reproving themselves, but at the same time, putting a stamp on it and saying, we're going to be a contender. And that's where I get, at some point, they're going to have to beat the upper echelon of the Big Ten, be it Oregon, be it Penn State, be it Michigan or Ohio State or whoever you want to talk about that's at the top. They have to find ways to win those ball games because they haven't. And that's the one thing that's hampered them and will continue to hamper them in the eyes of everyone, that they haven't beat, what they consider to be the Alabama of the Big Ten or the Georgia of the Big Ten. Ole Miss beats LSU. That is a statement win for Ole Miss against a penthouse level team in LSU and where they were at ranked and all that. Indiana needs one of those wins to help solidify them in this race, and they'll get it. But defensively, guys, man, Coach Haynes their defense has done a great job of preparing their defensive lines, playing lights out. Hardy Fisher, Hardy Jones, those two linebacking core are just ballers right now. And in the secondary, they got their communication problem solved because they've had very minimal, if any, lapses in coverage in the last couple weeks, which I think is a great sign. And the fact that we got Lewis more beyond the injunction stuff now, I just think that bodes well overall. Farrell's playing great, as is Pons when he's out there. We'll see if this calf injury is something that is just a minor thing and not something major. Boykin has played well. Gandy coming in last week to fulfill in for Pons. You know, he's the kid from Pitt. Boykin's the kid from North Carolina State, number 12. He's played well at that jack linebacker position. So defensively, they've played well. They haven't blitzed a lot. They've done some zone blitzing, but not a lot of go after it blitzing. That would be my only thing, is they're going to have to heat some teams up when they need to heat them up in the calculated area. But right now, they're getting great pressure with the 4-man front. And if they can continue to do that, that's awesome. So in that regard. And the other bright spot, guys, is special teams. If their special teams can keep producing like they have, getting block punts, getting great returns from Boyd, that bodes well for them as well, because that hidden yardage game is so important in a game like against Oregon. If they can win the kicking game there and find ways to score or set up a score with the special teams, that'll be huge in those type of games, especially at another hostile environment. So, but anyway, I appreciate you guys being with me. I've yacked long enough tonight, and we'll be back at it on Monday, starting to peek at this Oregon team and get an idea of where they're at, and learn from Sig in the press conference kind of where they're at and what they did this past week. But for the meantime, I appreciate you guys stopping in and being a part of the tailgate this evening. Don't forget, get over to Hoosier.com, get that $1 subscription and $50 off for the rest of the year, man. It's great. You get Athlon Sports, you get every thing under the sun from Rivals, On 3, as well as the Hoosier.com. The guys are killing it over there. With the basketball season approaching as well, they're going to have the best coverage at the Hoosier.com in that regard. And get what you say here, the college football world overlooks how good this Indiana defense is. Yep, defense is really good, and that's fine. But I don't think Indiana is going to sneak up on anybody, because the one thing on defense before I go, and I wanted to say this, there's a lot of talk about Kamara and his productivity. And it hasn't been to the level it was a year ago in terms of sacks and things of that nature. He is getting double teamed in critical situations. And that's just a sign of acknowledging how good he is. And if there's two guys that paying attention to him, that frees Tucker, that frees Lando up, Hosa Wheeler, Daly, you name it, Wyatt, to go make plays, which they have. So he's doing his job. It's just not come to the as fruitful as a year ago was. And part of that is nobody knew who he was a year ago. They do now, because they don't want to turn him loose. So anything. But anyway, appreciate y'all. You guys have a great rest of the week and great weekend. And we'll catch you back here on Monday night to do it all again. But for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. We'll see you next time here on the Hoosier Tailgate, all on the Hoosier.com. Good night, everybody.